The hallway smelled faintly of disinfectant and pencil shavings, the kind of scent that clings to American schools long after the bell rings. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, lockers stood like dull metal soldiers on both sides, and somewhere far off a basketball thumped against a gym floor in a steady, indifferent rhythm. Ethan's cheek pressed to the locker seam felt cold at first, then hot, then wet. He didn't know whether the wetness was tears, blood, or both. He only knew the sting in his left eye pulsed with his heartbeat, and the sound of laughter was already fading down the corridor with the boys who had left him there like a crumpled note no one wanted to read. He was trying not to make any noise, because noise brought attention and attention never helped him, not at school, not at home, not anywhere. But pain has its own voice, and his chest hitched once, then again, and that was when the steady shuffle of a cart's wheels slowed and a voice, warm and careful, slid into the space beside him. "Hey, hey, little man," the voice said. "Don't move just yet, I'm right here." The man smelled like soap and lemon oil, and when Ethan dragged his good eye upward he saw a navy and gray uniform, a name tag that read Marcus Daniels, Facilities, and hands he would later learn had changed more than light bulbs and floor pads. They had changed fates. Marcus didn't ask the obvious questions, the kind of questions teachers ask to fit a child into a form, into a process, into a consequence. He folded a few paper towels into a square, softened them with water from his bottle, then pressed them gentle as a cloud against Ethan's cheek. "You got clipped near the eye," Marcus murmured, scanning for glass or a split, voice steady like he was reading out loud from a calm book. "It looks worse than it is. You're going to be okay." Ethan wanted to believe him. He wanted to believe anyone. He wanted to stop being the boy who counted footsteps between classes because he knew which ones belonged to trouble. But words were cheap in his world unless they came with a hand that stayed. Marcus's hand stayed. He crouched so they were eye level, broad shoulders shielding the boy from the open corridor. "My cart's got a little first aid kit," he said. "Is it all right if we sit right here a minute and I take a look?" Ethan nodded because saying yes out loud felt like admitting he needed someone, and needing someone had never gone well. Marcus opened the kit, peeled a small light from the side, and tipped it away from the boy's pupils so it wouldn't stab. "You see my face okay?" he asked. Ethan breathed through his mouth and focused on Marcus's eyes, brown and bright, reflecting the skinny boy with the ruined lunch shirt and the eye already purpling. He nodded again. "Good. Cuts the corner, not the eye. We're going to clean it, bandage it, then we'll decide what the right next step is. But right now the only step is breathing." Marcus inhaled slow, audible, like teaching a secret code. Ethan copied him. In and out. The world stopped tilting. The tears kept coming, not as a flood but as a quiet leak the boy couldn't fix, and Marcus didn't tell him to stop. He simply reached up and hit the lock on the nearest locker door with his knuckle, so it clicked a small rhythm, a metronome for the breath. "My grandma used to do that on the porch rail," Marcus said, half to himself. "Said it works better than counting when your head is loud." Footsteps echoed from the far end of the hall, deliberate, polished soles on solid tile, a staccato that meant authority. Ethan flinched. Marcus didn't look away from the boy. "You're safe," he said. "I promise." A shadow stretched across the floor and a man in a navy suit appeared in Ethan's peripheral vision, jaw set, tie precise. The briefcase in his hand looked heavier than it should have. He stopped a few yards away as if an invisible line had been drawn there and he'd found it with the toe of his shoe. "What's going on here?" he asked, voice low, controlled, the kind of control you practice in mirrors. "I heard there was an incident." Marcus's shoulders squared, but his tone stayed gentle. "Student got hurt. I'm taking care of him before we move him anywhere." The man's gaze flicked over the crouched pair, paused on the blood at Ethan's collar, then traveled to the cleaner's cart like it might have some answer he could sign. "You," he said to Ethan, softer. "Do you need the nurse? I can call ahead." Ethan opened his mouth, closed it, and stared at the floor. He knew this man, but not personally. Everyone did. Mr. Whitaker, chair of the school board, major donor, powerful smile at open houses, careful nods at basketball games, owner of the company whose name hung on the new science wing like a crown. He'd seen him shaking hands with the principal, with the mayor, with fathers in good coats, always moving, always purposeful. Ethan's father had once pointed him out on TV with a bitterness that hardly fit in their living room. Must be nice, he'd said, to be born already halfway up the stairs. Marcus looked up long enough to meet Mr. Whitaker's eyes. It wasn't defiance. It wasn't deference. It was an assessment, a quick scaling of whether this man would help or make the boy smaller. The briefest smile touched the corners of Marcus's mouth without warming it. "We'll get him to the nurse in a minute," he said. "First he needs to know the world isn't going to demand things from him while he's bleeding." Mr. Whitaker's gaze sharpened, like he wasn't used to rooms where he didn't set the order of operations. But he didn't push. He let the briefcase hang and watched as Marcus cleaned the cut, soft movements, steady breath. The sound of lockers, the fluorescent hum, the far-off basketball, all of it faded for the three of them until the hallway felt like a small room where the furniture was made of air and attention. "There," Marcus said finally, placing a small butterfly bandage with the precision of a jeweler. "You still with me?" Ethan nodded, and this time he found his voice. "They took my book," he said, the sentence wobbling on its feet. "They threw it in the trash. It was my grandpa's. He wrote his name inside. It's the only thing I have of his." Marcus's hands paused. He glanced to the trash can half a hallway away, a gray cylinder near a trophy case that displayed victories Ethan never touched. "Stay right here," Marcus said, and he rose with a fluid grace that surprised the boy. He walked to the can like it had insulted him personally and peered inside. A few seconds later he pulled out a paperback, edges wet, cover bent, but intact. He tucked it into a clean trash liner like a patient transferred to a sterile stretcher, then carried it back, set it carefully on top of his cart, and started drying it with a clean microfiber cloth. He looked at the flyleaf and read the faded name. "Caleb Finch," he said. "Your grandpa." Ethan swallowed. "He taught me to read with that book." Marcus's mouth curved into something real this time. "I taught myself to read with a maintenance manual. The letters don't care where you meet them. They'll still change your life." Mr. Whitaker cleared his throat, the way people do when they want to say a thing without getting close to it. "Boys can be cruel," he said, as if announcing weather. "We'll handle discipline." Marcus didn't look up from drying the pages. "Discipline's good," he said. "But it won't make the hallway feel safe tomorrow. Safety starts when somebody who doesn't have to, stays." The words landed between them like a coin neither man wanted to pick up first. For a heartbeat Mr. Whitaker looked as if he might say something brisk and tidy and administrative. Then his expression shifted, almost imperceptibly, and the line of his shoulders loosened a fraction. He set the briefcase on the floor. "What's your name?" he asked Ethan, the question coming out less polished than he probably intended. "Ethan," the boy said. "Ethan Finch. I'm Mr. Whitaker." He hesitated. "I'm sorry this happened in a place that has my name on some of the walls. Names shouldn't just be plaques." Ethan didn't know what to do with that sentence. He wasn't sure Mr. Whitaker did either. Marcus finished with the book, wrapped it in a dry towel like a gift, and placed it in Ethan's lap. "You're carrying more than paper there," he said. "You feel steady enough to stand." With Marcus's arm as a lever, Ethan rose. The world swayed once and then righted itself. The bandage tugged. The air felt cooler on his damp skin. Mr. Whitaker took a half step closer, then stopped. "If it's all right," he said to Marcus, "I'd like to walk him to the nurse with you." Marcus studied him for a heartbeat and nodded. The three of them moved as a small, awkward procession through the hallway, the man in uniform guiding with quiet surety, the boy holding the rescued book, the man in the suit realizing that sometimes authority looks like following. The nurse clicked her tongue the way nurses do when a wound makes them both sad and busy. She thanked Marcus for the careful first aid, called Ethan brave even though he hadn't been anything but present, and sent a message to the front office. While she typed, Mr. Whitaker stood in a corner that looked like it had been waiting its whole life for him to notice there were corners. He took out his phone, stared at it, put it away. "Do you have someone I can call?" he asked Ethan. "A parent or guardian?" Ethan's mouth dried. His father would be at work until late, if he went at all, and even if he answered he'd come in hot, like gasoline lit with a match. His mother's number had been disconnected since Kansas. "It's okay," Marcus said quickly, sensing the stall. "We can figure that part out." "I'll stay," Mr. Whitaker said, the words surprising them all, including himself. He glanced at Marcus, then at the nurse. "If that's all right." "It's more than all right," the nurse said, and for the first time since she'd entered the room she looked at the board member like a person and not a position. There was paperwork to fill, and forms to sign, and somewhere out there a system eager to grind this single boy into statistics about bullying and policy enforcement. But in the small triangle of space between the nurse's desk, the infirmary cot, and the chair where Marcus's uniform pulled at the seam on his shoulder, something else was happening, something without an acronym or a budget line. Marcus told a story while the nurse wrote, his voice low and even, about the first time he realized a janitor could be a lighthouse. He'd been 7, sneakers with holes, a shirt that smelled faintly of old cooking oil no matter how many times his grandma washed it by hand. A teacher had told him to throw away his project because it was sticky, and he tried to pretend he didn't care. The school custodian, Mr. Ellis, had fished the project out of the trash, cleaned the glue from the edges with Goo Gone, mounted it on a piece of cardboard he scavenged from a delivery box, and left it on Marcus's desk with a note that said, "You made something. Don't let anyone tell you it doesn't belong on a wall." That day, Marcus said, "I decided that if I ever had keys to this building, I'd use them for doors that aren't just literal." Ethan watched his mouth form the words and felt something in his chest unclench a little, like a fist that had mistaken itself for a heart. Mr. Whitaker listened, too, his eyes not leaving Marcus's face, as if memorizing a language he'd always heard spoken around him but never really learned. The office called for Ethan. There would be questions asked in official voices and cameras turned off, for privacy, and then turned back on in people's heads. Marcus stood. Mr. Whitaker reached for the briefcase and then let it remain on the floor. "I'll come," he said, and the sentence had weight. "I'll tell them I saw you take care of him before anyone else did." Marcus gave a small nod. "That'll be useful later," he said. "Right now, what's useful is you walking beside him, not ahead." They went together. The principal's office had awards on the walls and a plant so green it had to be plastic. The principal cleared his throat the way principals do when they want to be empathetic and efficient at once. Statements were taken. Names were offered. Mr. Whitaker's presence, usually a hammer, this time sat on the table like a steadying hand. When it was done, the school day was nearly over. Outside, a gray sky threatened either rain or nothing. It was hard to tell with gray. Marcus walked Ethan to the curb where buses coughed and parents idled in cars, their lives a chain of errands. "Do you ride or walk?" Marcus asked. "I walk," Ethan said. "It's not far. I can drive you," Mr. Whitaker said, then caught himself. "If you're allowed to ride with me, I can also call a district shuttle." Ethan looked at Marcus. "You trust him?" he asked in a whisper that wasn't a challenge, just a small boy's due diligence. Marcus smiled, the kind that makes a new day feel possible. "I think he's trying to learn how to be trusted," he said. "And that counts. I can walk him," Marcus added, glancing at his cart. "But my shift." "I'll cover your time, Mr. Whitaker said quickly. "I'll cover your whole department today." He startled at his own offer, then doubled down. "And tomorrow, if needed." Marcus chuckled softly. "We're not a line item you can buy twice," he said, "but I appreciate the energy." He turned to Ethan. "How about this? I'll walk with you part of the way until I turn toward the bus stop. Mr. Whitaker, you can walk or follow if you like. You'll both get some fresh air. Everybody wins." They set out down the sidewalk, past the chain link fence where the soccer nets sagged a little, past the mural where bright paint fought off the boredom of brick, past the sign with the school motto that always read truer in June than in October. For a while they said nothing. Leaves scuffed under their shoes. A dog barked behind a fence. A siren wailed somewhere far enough away to be a different story. "Why didn't you yell at me?" Ethan asked finally, glancing at Marcus. "Most adults, I don't know. They get mad when something's already bad." Marcus looked at him sidelong. "Because you didn't need yelling," he said. "You needed someone to help you carry the moment until it wasn't heavier than you." He tipped his chin toward the man in the suit walking half a pace behind them, hands in his pockets now, briefcase swinging like it had become a bag of groceries. "We all do, sometimes. Even the ones who look like they never do." Mr. Whitaker didn't pretend he hadn't heard. "When I was your age," he said, and the admission sounded like a door unlatched, "I went to a school where a custodian taught me how to fix a jammed locker because no one else would listen. He said you can either yank at a thing and make it angrier, or you can breathe and find where it wants to move. I've been yanking at things for a long time." They came to the corner where Marcus would split off. He stopped, looked at the boy, then at the man, and then at the world, which kept pretending it wasn't full of hinges waiting to turn. "Tomorrow will try to be like today," Marcus said to Ethan. "Bullies love repeats. But you and me, we can love patterns, too. I'm in this hallway every morning at 7. If you get here early, we can drink terrible coffee from the teacher's lounge and read a chapter of your grandpa's book while the building wakes up. The more light you put into a place, the more anything that hates light gets uncomfortable." Ethan's throat tightened in a way that wasn't pain. "I don't have a thermos," he said, as if this were the only barrier. "I have two," Marcus said. "You can borrow forever." He turned to Mr. Whitaker. "And you?" The man blinked, not used to being included in a plan that didn't begin at a conference table. "I'll make sure there's fresh fruit and granola bars in the office every morning," he said, speaking as the version of himself who could sign for things and make them appear. Then, softer, the version trying to be a person, "and I'll be in the hallway at 7:30, just walking. Not inspecting. Just walking." Marcus nodded like a coach who has decided a kid might make the team if he keeps showing up. He extended his hand. After a heartbeat, Mr. Whitaker shook it. "Thank you for seeing him, Mr. Whitaker said, tipping his head toward Ethan. "Before the system did." "Systems are just people multiplied," Marcus said. "Multiply better." He clapped Ethan's shoulder, as light as a bird landing. "Get home safe, little man. Keep that book next to your heart so it can hear it beat." Ethan watched Marcus cross to the bus stop, watched him settle on the bench like he owned nothing and held everything. He looked up at Mr. Whitaker, who stood awkwardly in the afternoon light, suit a little out of place on a sidewalk that had known more sneakers than leather shoes. "Do you think it'll really be different?" Ethan asked. Mr. Whitaker followed the boy's gaze to the man on the bench, then to the school settling into its after-hours shape, then to the sky trying to decide what to do with itself. "I think different happens one hallway at a time," he said. "And sometimes you have to let someone else show you where the door is." They walked the last blocks to Ethan's apartment complex where paint peeled and kids turned bike frames into ships. At the entrance, Ethan stopped and held the book like a passport. "Thank you," he said, not sure which man he was saying it to, so he said it to both. "I'll be there at 7. "I will, too," Mr. Whitaker said, surprising himself with how much he wanted it to be true. He watched the boy disappear up the stairwell and listened to the echo of his footsteps until it was gone. The air tasted like rain finally making up its mind. He tilted his face to it and thought of a janitor's hands, steady and sure, building a lighthouse in a hallway that smelled like pencil shavings and lemon oil. And for the first time in longer than he could admit, he hoped that a small, ordinary morning might be enough to rewrite a life.